hip-hop's energy begins in the street gang culture, very specifically the black space.
Okay. Kool Herc took that energy and created hip-hop music.
That's a good way to put it.
Looping the breaks.
That's a good way to put it.
Right, okay.
50 years of hip-hop. 50 years of hip-hop. You know what I'm saying? It's a beautiful thing to celebrate.
You know, hip-hop is a worldwide phenomenon. Hip-hop has fed a lot of families, have helped a lot of people, kept a lot of people positive. It has done a lot of positive things. There has been many nationalities that have all contributed to hip-hop. You know, various nationalities. Even nowadays, we see Russians contributing to hip-hop. There have been various different ethnicities, various different nationalities, all contributing to hip-hop, making hip-hop what it is now, making hip-hop a global phenomenon as it is now. The thing about hip-hop is that the early formation of hip-hop was really never documented. It was really never video cameraed and taken pictures of. No one really documented it until maybe the second and third wave.
There's no one person that invented breakdancing or rap. It's just a wave.
Until maybe the second and third wave, until, you know, the late 70s. That's when people started, you know, recording and taking photos and things like that. But as far as the very beginning of hip-hop, a lot of it was never documented.
Where's the footage of y'all B-boys?
Well, probably as us, in the 70s, you won't have any of that, because they weren't doing that much.
That's a shame, too.
Yeah, it is a shame. HERC has some home movies, and he might have people with that. But, you know, just, you know, unfortunately, you know, we weren't thinking like that in those days.
So we have to go by the testimony of the people who was actually there. We have to go by the words of the people who was actually there. And, you know, some of our viewers said that, you know, we need to canonize hip-hop history. And I even heard KRS-One say that, you know, as far as bringing people together, you know, to canonize hip-hop history.
We're not knocking anyone's perspective. No one's perspective is good. We're including all perspectives. But we're going to have to now come up with a history that makes some kind of sense. Some chronological sense, all the hype, what we said in the past, who did what, and so on. We're going to have to come with evidence now. You're going to have to say, you know, we're going to have to come with the real. You know, but who are we going to decide and say, yo, this is what it is. We're not moving from this. We're going to canonize this knowledge, and this is what it is. So,
you know, and I agree with that. I might not use the word canonize, but I do say, you know, we need to set hip-hop history straight and put it in concrete for the future, you know, for the future generations. So it's no mistake, so it's no assuming.
Right. A lot of people were not there and they can't say exactly what happened.
Some of the people you got talking weren't there.
Right.
They weren't there. You came in the fucking 80s.
We would have to go back to 1971. We would have to go back to 1972. We would have to go back to 1973. If we really want to understand hip-hop, we would have to ask Kool Herc what influenced him to dress the way he dressed, you know? Who influenced him to wear, you know, sheepskins? Who influenced Kool Herc to wear sheepskins? How did he know to do that? You know what I'm saying? Because from my understanding, from Kool Herc's own words, Kool Herc was not dressed in hip-hop style when he came from Jamaica.
What surprised you most about what the styles were when you got to New York? You know, were the clothes different?
I didn't have the hip clothes. I had on the hick clothes. I had on the aviator hat that you pull over your ears and the flip up top. I had the wide corduroy jacket on. I looked straight like a hick.
So how did Kool Herc learn to dress hip-hop style? If we really want to understand the formation of hip-hop, then we would have to go back and understand what shaped Kool Herc to do what he did.
We're really dealing with hip-hop's creation.
What was going on in the Bronx streets in 1971, 1972, 1973?
75 and the Black Spades.
The Black Spades were the largest street gang in New York City. The largest street gang in New York City.
Yeah, that's what Mark was saying. He was saying in 71, just seemed like that's when everything exploded in 71.
Boom! We had divisions in every single borough, plus divisions in Westchester County. So it was a huge thing.
In 71, everybody wanted to be, I mean, that's when everybody came to BRONXDALE and shit and said, yo, I want to join, I want to join, I want to join.
I joined the Spades in 1971. I became supreme spokesman of the South Bronx. I was in the 17th Division.
Yeah. And dude, we went to Stevenson and start fighting them white boys and kicked them all out. That's when it just exploded.
Y'all kicked them out.
I mean, we would sit here and you would see people coming from everywhere. People coming from everywhere. Right. And then I had to make the thing up where, you know, you just can't come over here and join the Spades, you know, and want a division. you got to come here with people. Yeah. You know, you got to have at least 20 people, then you can have a division. Other than that, you could just be a spade.
From my understanding, the Black Spades played a major part in what was going on in the Bronx streets at that time.
And all around. I mean, everywhere. You know, you couldn't go nowhere and don't see those spades and shit.
We had the whole entire Bronx, from Co-op City to Patterson Project, 3rd Avenue, to all the way up to Florida Road. We had everywhere.
Right. Was y'all the biggest gang at that time?
Yeah.
75 and the Black Spades.
So, you know, we in 2021 from 1971, celebrating 50 years of hip-hop, celebrating the energy and the culture of hip-hop. You know, our elders taught how hip-hop basically stemmed or came out of gang culture, and very specifically the African-American gang culture, like the Black Spades.
All right, hip-hop's energy begins in the street gang culture, very specifically the Black Spades. Okay?
Right.
And then the influences for all of that certainly come out of gang culture, and very specifically the Black Spades.
So when HERC came and did what, they credited him for the merry-go-round,
right,
the music was already here.
Right.
You know, the culture came from the gangs. The gangs was having fun.
You know what I'm saying? So we celebrating 50 years of the energy and the culture of hip-hop. My brother Faye says we just celebrating 50 years of hip-hop.
50 years of hip-hop, period.
We started in June.
With DJ Mario. Just what we were doing, by people seeing what we were doing, that's what influenced everything.
Faye, why don't you park right in here?
You can't park inside the parking lot.
We gonna talk right there.
I'll see if there's a parking spot up there.
Okay.
All right.
Spade power. Spade power.
Now let it be known.
Okay.
Right? Let it be known that the reason why people are so upset at BRONXDALE, period.
Oh, people are? I didn't know people were upset.
People are. Well, when I say people, I'm talking about some of even the second and third generation hip hop people. You know, there's a couple of my friends. You know, they're upset because of the basic lie that was told about hip hop.
Okay.
And now that things are coming up to front.
Okay.
Coming to light.
Okay.
So since that's happening now, people are really changing the stories. They're changing the timelines.
Okay.
They're changing this. Even a good friend of mine that we always argue, Charlie Rock.
Okay.
Even he came up to me and he said, we argue, but you're still my brother. You're still a spade for life. And when he, and I said it back to him because, he is my brother.
Right.
And so, sometimes we argue about the timelines of things, and sometimes we argue about all kinds of crazy stuff that we argue, but that's my brother.
Right.
And so, but like I said, even that was, I would say, when the dancing, that part of break dancing was, I want to say second generation, but it could have even been third generation, because that's 77, 78, 76.
Well, they was breakdancing in 74, 75.
No, listen, that's why I'm saying second or third generation.
So you're saying the second
right,
generation
so
of hip-hop.
the first generation was actually 71.
Okay.
Because that spade dance and all the other little things that was happening, that was part of the breakdancing.
Oh, that was it. Oh, but Monk had to be there.
That was the second round. That was the second round song.
Did breakdance come from y'all?
Yeah.
It did?
You damn right.
Wow. And y'all was stomping with that or what?
No, we be in the club. With the glory stompers. Doing this, then we started breakdancing. A lot of clubs didn't want us in it.
So the first generation was actually 71.
Okay.
Because that spade dance and all the other little things that was happening, that was part of the break dancing.
Okay.
Okay, so when they started doing all the tricks and the you know, somersaults and stuff like that, that became a total different break dancing.
Okay.
Because it wasn't done to the beat. It was done to just, if you could do a flip, you do a flip. You could do back stuff, you could do, that's just a back stuff. So it wasn't done to the beat. And that's what a part of breakdancing was. It was done to the beat. It was done to the beat, you know what I'm saying?
Okay.
You know what I'm saying? So that's the big difference in what was happening with breakdancing.
My brother FaZe brought up breakdancing, you know, and with all of this confusion out here about, you know, Caribbeans started hip-hop.
Hip-hop was given birth to by Caribbean culture.
I'm gonna give 90% of hip-hop to Jamaica.
Certain questions have to be asked. Certain real questions have to be asked. You know, if we're going to be honest, you know what I'm saying, we're going to have the courage to ask certain questions.
Who were the B-boys before Rocksteady?
You know, out the original B-boys from 1973 to 1976, how many of the original B-boy crews was predominantly Jamaican? How many of the original B-boy crews was predominantly Puerto Rican? You know, what was the ethnicity of most of the original B-boys?
The brothers were the one that started breakdancing.
Who were the B-boys before Rocksteady?
But what happened? It became a Spanish thing.
Right. My brother James Cruz said that Puerto Ricans was guests in hip-hop.
Latinos in general, let's just say this, you know?
The question comes, you know, was Puerto Ricans guests in early hip-hop? And me personally, I wouldn't call them guests in early hip-hop, but I definitely would say Puerto Ricans was minorities in early hip-hop. When I say minority, I'm talking strictly about the population. What I'm saying is Puerto Ricans, their population was not dominant in early hip-hop. Their population was basically small. From my understanding, back then in hip-hop, Puerto Ricans was not so numerous. From my understanding, back in the early 1970s, Puerto Ricans was much more into their own Puerto Rican culture. They was much more into salsa, Tito Puente.
Directamente de Puerto Rico, amigos salseros, aquí les traemos la salsa de Borinquen Records.
¿Quién diablos me ha tomado? Oiga usted, señor.
The thing is, see, nowadays with all this mixing, a lot of us are mixing our genetics together, and you know, it just seems like people are starting to forget how it all started.
People can't pass a hit back.
You know, some people make it seem like African American population and Puerto Rican population was like the same, you know, in early hip hop, and that just wouldn't be true.
Puerto Ricans and blacks created hip-hop.
From my understanding, in early hip-hop, Puerto Ricans was like a minority, their population. From my understanding, it was an overwhelming majority of African-American energy in early hip-hop. And when I say early hip-hop, I'm talking about from 1971 to 1976. I'm talking about, you know, before the commercialization of hip-hop. Puerto Rican, their population in hip-hop became more prevalent, more predominant in the 80s. In the 1980s, that's when Puerto Rican population really started to gravitate towards hip-hop. Let's ask Kool Herc how many Puerto Ricans was in his original crew. When he first started in 1973 with Coke La Rock, 73, 74, how many Puerto Ricans was in Kool Herc's original crew? How many Puerto Ricans was in the original Zulu Kings, the first 10, 11 Zulu Kings? How many Puerto Ricans was in the original Zulu Kings? Let's ask Grandmaster Flash when Grandmaster Flash was a B-boy, when Melly Mel was a B-boy. How many Puerto Ricans was in their original crew? The overwhelming vibe, the overwhelming energy of early hip-hop was strictly foundational African-American. African-American vibe and spirit and energy was dominant in early hip-hop.
Kool Herc ain't create breakdancing.
Right. Graffiti.
He ain't create graffiti.
Right.
Puerto Ricans had a lot to do with that part.
I think in terms of the influence of Puerto Ricans in b-boying, it's just the flavor that we bring into dancing. Like a lot of the moves in b-boying, you see them back in the days of mambo and salsa and all these Latin rhythms, and they are being incorporated into hip-hop music. When we're talking about Crazy Legs and all these folks, the Rocksteady crew.
That's that 80s Rocksteady stuff?
Right.
That's that.
He's always been a fixture in hip-hop, and Legs in particular is the most recognizable face in B-boy. Who were the B-boys before Rocksteady?
You know, I think there's a misunderstanding that, you know, Puerto Ricans started breakdance. There's a misunderstanding that Rocksteady was some of the original B-boys. I think this is a big misunderstanding in hip-hop.
And for Rocksteady, they didn't invent nothing. They were just in the right place at the right time, and they picked up where we left off. And that's as simple as that. That ain't knocking them, that ain't anything. That's just the fact, and that's just the history. And it's cool, but you can't speak on shit that you don't know about.
Right, right.
Because somebody told you.
Who were the B-boys before Rocksteady?
The original B-boys, from my understanding, was ADOS, FBA, Foundational African Americans.
The brothers were the ones that started breakdancing.
Now, from my understanding, ironically, it may have been BRONXDALE with the most Puerto Rican breakdances from 1973 to 1976. In that time frame, it may have been Chuck City Crew with the most Puerto Rican breakdances, you know, active in hip-hop at that time. You know, I need further confirmation on this.
You had Chuck City Crew.
Right.
You know, you had my man like Johnny and all them. They were B-boys. They danced.
You had Crazy X, man, Puerto Rican, man, running with the black Spades, man.
Right.
You know what I mean? The young Spades, little brother Edgar, man.
May have been. I gotta do more research on it and figure it out. But off top, it looked like between 1973 and 1976, BRONXDALE, home of the Black Spades, Chuck City Crew, had the most Puerto Rican breakdance. Cause see, from my understanding, the original Zulu Kings, the original 11 Zulu Kings didn't have any Puerto Rican breakdances. You know, and I never heard of Kool HERC having Puerto Rican breakdances with his crew.
Off of Mario.
What would you say they copied off of Mario?
Why? Chuck City Crew.
That's who was out. It was Mario and the Chuck City Crew.
1973 to 1976. But again, this is something that should be a public discussion on the history of hip-hop. The real, true history of hip-hop.
Who were the B-boys before Rocksteady? And when hip-hop started from the very beginning, you had Puerto Ricans there, side to side with the black folks.
So when you hear people say Puerto Ricans was in hip-hop from the beginning, yeah, but in BRONXDALE, you know, with the Black Spades, with Mario. From my understanding, Tex DJ Hollywood was the only Puerto Rican DJ in hip-hop at that time.
I told you the first three was Tex, Mario, and Spanky.
Mario and Tex, they would play, right? And the gym had a divider.
You ain't even heard nothing about on the South Bronx. They playing music, they playing this, they playing that. Of course, how we know about that? Because we was gangbusting.
Right.
We were gangbusting. And we went on every edge of the Bronx.
But again, this is something that the elders should come together and discuss and get straight.
Okay.
Because that spade dance and all the other little things that was happening, that was part of the breakdancing.
Okay.
Okay, so when they started doing all the tricks and the you know, somersaults and stuff like that, that became a total different breakdancing.
Okay.
Because it wasn't done to the beat. You know what I'm saying? So that's the big difference in what was happening with breakdancing.
Okay.
They don't put all the elements to hip hop. Is what we was talking about before. Snapping,
right,
is a part of hip hop.
Right.
And Mr. Biggs was an MC for Bambaataa at that time. And we started the battles, because then we used to talk about, your mother looks so fat, she's looked like the polar, you know, we had those kind of battles and stuff like that.
Right.
Okay. Snapping is definitely a part of hip hop. And so people don't add that element into it.
Right.
But that's a big element.
Especially if the pioneers are the ones that got snapped on.
Exactly.
When I got in and got a pair of cowboy winter boots, this girl in high school, junior high school, teased me to death. Yeah, look at him, he got on Roach Killers. And she had the whole hallway just tearing me up. Roach Killers, and all that.
And this is, you guys made me this person. Right. You know, I was just a geek. You know, and geeks weren't cool back then. Right.
Exactly.
When they first started,
exactly.
If they was the one to get snapped on, of course they
exactly. You know, because
and even and dress in fashion.
That's the next part of it.
Right.
Now, when we were snapping, a lot of the crew that, like, if it's raining outside, we're inside the building in the staircase snapping.
Right.
So when we do get a chance to get on the mic, some of those snaps is gonna be on the mic.
You said something before, like y'all was to the beat, like y'all was snapping to the beat or something like that?
Well, we just like the dozen.
The dozen.
You know, you play the dozen, talk about somebody mother and all that, and you're so skinny, you got both eyes look through the peacoat, stuff like that.
Right.
You should rap with that. So instead of just snapping, they started doing raps.
You see what I'm saying?
Right.
So that was a part of it. That, you know, and like I said, we were emulating Pink Meat Martin. And what was he doing? He was telling jokes.
Here comes the judge. All those cats got to listen to me because I am the judge and you can plainly see. Lay down the law. They better not budge or I'll bust some heads because I am the judge. Here comes the judge. Here comes the judge. Everybody knows he is the judge.
And what was he doing? He was telling jokes.
Okay.
So that's a part of the snapping. And so they don't put that element into it. And that's the part.
Well, it could be an element in our understanding of hip-hop. Our 50th anniversary of hip-hop.
Well, and that's what I'm saying to us. See, when we do this 50th years, these 50 days, we got to go strong.
Right. And we want to invite all.
We want to invite
FBA, ADOS, foundational African Americans. We want to invite all our people to celebrate with us. Because we celebrating our culture, our African American foundational African American culture.
Right.
It's ours.
It's ours.
It's ours.
And that's the key word.
Right.
It's ours.
Right.
And we're not going to allow some other people to take it away
Immigrants.
from us. Okay? We're not going to let them come over. Get out the way. We're not going to let them just come here.
I agree with my brother FaZe on this point. On the internet, you know, it shows, you know, little articles about Kool Herc, you know, it's supposed to be planning some kind of museum in Jamaica. And I think that's great. You know, I think that's a great thing to put a museum, a hip-hop museum in Jamaica. There should be a hip-hop museum in a lot of other countries around the world. When you take in consideration the impact that hip-hop has around the world, is understandable. It's great to put museums in Jamaica, Caribbean, Barbados, put hip-hop museums all around the world. You know what I'm saying? But then when you start talking about Jamaicans or reclaiming hip-hop, or like, it feels like immigrants, Caribbeans are just trying to take away the credit for hip-hop. You know, I've seen articles where they trying to say, well, you know, building a hip-hop museum in Jamaica will spark the economy in Jamaica. You know, will build the economy in Jamaica because, from my understanding, Jamaica has a history of being real poor, poverty.
Jamaicans are poorer than they were 2 years ago, with 10% living in extreme poverty. Some can't even buy food to eat as they're unable to get a stable job because of little education.
Here is a staggering statistic. 56% of children living in the U.S. Commonwealth of Puerto Rico live in poverty. That's compared to 22% of children for the entire United States.
Behind the island's enchantment, there is a hidden truth. Puerto Rico's children are the poorest of the United States.
Like, it feels like people are just trying to take the credit away from African Americans, give it to the Caribbeans or give it to Jamaica just to spark the economy in the Caribbean islands, just to spark the economy in Jamaica.
I'm going to give 90% of hip-hop to Jamaica.
Hip-hop was given birth to by Caribbean culture.
But you know, we're going to keep everything respectful. And we're going to respectfully say to our Caribbean brothers and sisters, hip-hop does not belong to you. Hip-hop is not yours. Yes, some of the children of immigrants made great contributions to hip-hop, but only after you became African Americanized. You made great contributions only after you started to emulate African Americans. After you started to walk like us, talk like us, dress like us, our fashion, coordinate your clothes like how we coordinate our clothes.
You got to coordinate. Most people don't coordinate. See, you got to coordinate.
Then you made contributions to our hip-hop culture.
They learned all these styles just from us.
So we're not going to let somebody just come over here and say, oh, we did this. We started this. We did it. It's just not going to happen. Not on my watch. You know what I'm saying?
Right. Yo, but FaZe, listen, but you know, this doesn't even have to be a disagreement. I want to say this for the record. We can all agree. This could be a total agreement because...
No, it can't be.
Yeah, listen. Let me
tell you why it can't be agreement.
Why it can't be, but you didn't even hear me out.
Because what you said there was agreement. This is the agreement.
Go ahead.
We started it, and anybody else that came after we started it, that's okay. That's y'all. You do okay.
Right.
But don't come over here and say that you started what we started.
Right. No.
So what's the agreement?
But this is what I'm saying. If Kool Herc can really be honest and truthful and say, hey, I didn't start the energy and the culture, but I started the break beats, you know, for the B-boys. Listen, he started the break beats for the B-boys in 73, 74, right? We can all agree with that, but the culture...
Who can all agree with that? That's
culture,
you can agree with that. I can't agree with that. Even G Belly, and I'm going to say my man in Brooklyn.
Brooklyn's in the house.
G Belly, and I'm going to say my man in Brooklyn. G Belly said, he said, yo, FaZe.
Shout out all our African American, foundational African Americans from Brooklyn.
And see, that's what, you know, it's hard for me, especially me, being Booby. It's hard for me to say, okay, well, whatever, because I already know what it was. I already know they're playing the drums, break beats, what break beats was. I already know how I used to get records, break beats from Woolworth, Corvettes.
Let's stay on topic though.
That is topic. That's the beat. That's the break beats. And so you can't say that Herc started break beats.
For the B-boys, his whole movement of B-boys, he's the one that started that. He's the father of that.
Okay, but see, that's enough. That's what always gets me mad. So I guess there's two definitions for B-boys. Because our definition was BRONXDALE, boy.
Friday night, the boys become running. The boys become running.
BRONXDALE, boy. All right, that's our
and you
definition.
know, I saw Bam Bam again, and he said the same thing. He said the Spades, they was thinking of names, and one of the names was BRONXDALE Bad Boys.
Exactly.
But he won't say it on video. I gotta talk to Bam Bam. And Bam Bam is like one of the founders and the heads of everything.
There you go. And he said it. He let you know.
Bam Bam said like Fat Mike's older brothers in them was Bad Boys or whatever name they went by, whatever. And they was trying to carry on that legacy. At least that's what I got from it. But look, FaZe, I want to say this. Why can't we all agree we could have come together as a hip-hop nation with the culture and the energy starting in 71 and Kool Herc's B-boy break beat started in 73.
And
we can all come together as a hip-hop nation.
And I'll tell you that. I'll tell you, listen. Just like we said, the original B-boys was BRONXDALE boys. Okay, so wait a minute. So you can't say that he come and say, oh, B-boys for whatever it stand for and his whatever, and say that he started that. Because just like I said in the beginning, we were already doing break beats. We were already going crazy as soon as the record came.
We can't take everything from him. Let's let FaZe have. I mean, let FaZe.
You know what?
Let Kool Herc have his thing.
Let
Kool Herc have his thing, man.
No, I'm not.
Let him have his thing.
I'm gonna let him. This is what I'm gonna have. In 1974, 73, maybe.
Right.
Kool Herc came. What we were doing, and he incorporated what his B-boys.
Okay, right.
And so once B-boys started doing it, then it started going a little bit more. Because our little B-boys and stuff was really directed at BRONXDALE, Monroe, Castle Hill, Bronx River, Soundview, Cozy Corner, Lambert, a little bit of Lafayette, a little bit of Parkchester. Okay, so that's it. So now him being on the west side, he incorporated his B-boys to do something.
Right.
I agree with FaZe on this point. Mario was much more of a, a street DJ in the Soundview area. Even though I did hear stories of Mario going to other parts of the Bronx and doing certain things. However, from my understanding, Kool Herc was also in the projects, and it seems like that's where a lot of people know Kool Herc or remember Kool Herc from. Webster Avenue, 3rd Avenue, Washington Avenue.
The only thing I know Herc from is over there on 3rd Avenue by 3rd Avenue.
The 169th Street and Washington Avenue. That made Kool Herc Copeland rock with the nigga twins like this.
Webster houses, Butler houses, Governor Morris houses. And the sad thing is that Webster houses over there, Webster Avenue and 3rd Avenue is not being acknowledged with 1520 Sedgwick as, you know, a home of hip-hop or whatever of hip-hop, birthplace of hip-hop. If this is where Kool Herc got a lot of notoriety, or if this is where Kool Herc, you know what I'm saying, got bigger or more prominent, it just seems to me that Webster houses and the projects over there should also share some of the glory in hip-hop along with 1520 Sedgwick Avenue.
169th Street Webster. They boxing profusely.
And what, they was protecting her?
Yeah, they was protecting her.
You know what I'm saying? Because the way I see it, 1520 Sedgwick, that strip over there is more affluent. It's more working class people. It's more working class people who are not living in poverty, like how they are on Webster Avenue. So the way I see it, you know, Webster houses and Butler houses should get some kind of acknowledgement also. It'd just be a good thing to see the projects and everything on Webster Avenue, 3rd Avenue, get acknowledgement as far as a home of hip-hop or where Herc, you know, became prominent at. You know what I'm saying? It'd be good to see them get awarded with some kind of acknowledgement from the city and state of New York also.
That was the meanest project on the west side back then.
Webster?
Yeah. So Kool Herc catered to where it was the meanest project. That's why he became widely known.
For the rest of the Bronx.
For the west side of the Bronx.
Well, it was people from Harlem coming to see him. Red Alert, they say they was coming to see him from Harlem.
But you got, okay, but that's what I'm saying. See, and that's another thing. You gotta understand that in 71 and 72, people were scared to come to BRONXDALE.
Right.
One thing about BRONXDALE, if you didn't belong here, don't come here.
Right.
And if you came here, you knew somebody and you respect.
Right, yeah.
So
and that's what Green Eye tried to say too.
Yo, it was a contained thing.
Right. I want to say this too, because Green Eye tried to say, Green Eye says that
BRONXDALE was the Roman Empire. So when we was bringing out the music, it wasn't known like that. So when we was bringing out the music, it wasn't known like that.
BRONXDALE, so it's true though what he said. He said BRONXDALE, what you saying? Whatever y'all was doing in 71 wasn't that big because people were scared to come here. But however, the leaders from all across the Bronx was coming here.
And before we knew it, I mean, people would come from all over. I mean, they'll come from Thog's Neck. They come from Monroe. They come from over here. I mean, they were just coming in. And then on Wednesdays when we had our meetings, we would have like maybe 20 divisions.
But this was, right here was the heart.
Right.
Everybody came here.
Right.
They used to come to Mario's little parties.
The Spade leaders was coming here.
Well, yeah.
They was coming here and they was coming to Soundview.
Right.
So to the leaders from each community around the Bronx wouldn't know what was going on in the Bronx.
And that's probably how it got
out. But any random person couldn't come to
BRONXDALE.
Right, or Soundview or any of these areas.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? But the leaders did.
The outsiders heard about somebody playing Disco King Mario playing music outside, and they all came here, so they said, why we can't do it in our neighborhood? And that's how it went.
Right.
So, and the leaders will bring it back to their community.
Right. And
like you say.
That's why it happened.
Right, and that's how hip-hop started.
Right. Okay. So that's what it was.
So we agree then.
Right, we agree that.
Well, we could come together as one hip-hop nation if they willing to honor 71 as the beginning of the energy.
Right.
And even Charlie Rock says that.
All right, hip-hop's energy begins in the street gang culture, very specifically the black space. Okay?
The energy started with the gang culture, very specifically the black spades.
Right.
All the original groups or crews, then they became Casanovas and 17th Division Black Spades, Zulu Nation organization, 10th Division Black Spades, Chuck City Crew, 1st Division Black Spades.
That's why, and that's another thing, why it says that it was, they don't think we was extending the breaks, but that's exactly what we were doing because that's the only way we could dance to the dances that we were doing.
Okay.
So, you know, with me, especially and you can ask anybody. And then you can ask Peter Williams and everything. I was the little drummer boy.
Okay.
Okay, so all of those things I did, and because I only had one turntable, and so I played on the drums, and my cousin would play the actual break on the record player.
Okay.
Simple.
There you go.
I was extending it.
So we're going to celebrate, we're going to get
And
together.
that's why we had, and that's why I showed you the M that had phono 1 and phono 2.
Okay. Right, so we could come together. Good. So we could come together as one hip hop nation. And understand that Kool Herc did not start the culture and the energy of hip hop. He contributed big time to it. Right. Now,
what Herc and Sydney did in 1520, I'm not taking nothing away from that. You know?
Okay, but that's not the beginning of hip hop to you.
Not at the beginning. No. That's the beginning of Herc. Right. Sydney. That's what that is. It's not the beginning of Herc Hop. It's the beginning of Herc and his sister Cindy. It's the beginning of what they did, what they started. Wow. How their contribution to this art form, that's the day it started for them.
So in closing, unfortunately, at this time, I don't have direct contact with people like KRS-One or Kool Herc or Grandmaster Flash to bring together some kind of event to canonize or, to set hip-hop history straight. Let's bring Kool Herc together with Sinbad, together with DJ Phase, together with Green Eye Genie, together with Grandmaster Flash, together with Cool DJ D, Tyrone the Mixologist, Chuck City Breakdancers, together with the Nigga Twins, Clark Kent, whatever B-boys, break boys that is still alive, that was around in 1974, 1975. Let's bring the elders together to properly document hip-hop. It's unfortunate that, Africa Bambaataa is in the whole homosexual molestation scandal, because Africa Bambaataa has a lot of answers to, this situation as far as documenting hip-hop history. Africa Bambaataa is an integral part of hip-hop history. However, as far as Zulu, from my understanding, some of the original Zulu kings are still alive, like Ahmed. Let's bring Ahmed to the table. Ahmed has a great knowledge and understanding of hip-hop history.
Ahmed, scholar, been there from the beginning.
I actually spoke with Ahmed a couple of years back, behind the scene, short conversation. And from what I remember, he actually confirmed that breakdance came from spade dance. Like I say, the original Zulus have a very integral part in hip-hop history, knowledge of hip-hop history. But like I say, Michael Wayne TV, and hopefully we could get direct contact with some of the elders, or maybe KRS-One to document hip-hop history. But, we need the people who was actually there on the street in 1971, 1972, 1973. We need the actual people who was actually there, popular in the Bronx streets. And, we're not talking about grown man rap. Like the Jubilaires, they was rapping in the 1940s. We're not talking about grown man rap, Pygmy Markham. We're not talking about that. We're talking about hip-hop. And hip-hop began from young teenagers and pre-teens.
He catered to adults. Right. And adults were not hip-hop. Hip-hop was a youth-oriented movement.
Hip-hop was stolen from 8, 9, 10, 11-year-old kids.
Right. It's not adults. Right. It's youth-oriented. Right. Any adults were very young adults. Very, very young. Right. And those adults were still connected to us.
So we're starting from the point in the Bronx when the teenagers kind of sort of took over the street and started to express themselves through music, graffiti, etc. There's one thing Busta Rhymes said that I did actually agree with. And he said the origin of hip-hop is the most neglected. As far as study, research, and documenting.
The most significant and neglected component about the history and the research of hip-hop is its origin. We got to start changing that.